welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lana Shalom. I'm a certified neurographic instructor and coach since 2018. And I do a lot of sessions, a lot of explanations, a lot of open insiders into what the neurographic method is about and how it can help you in your everyday life, in your professional life, in your just family life, maybe in your business, in your career. Okay. What I'm going to do today, the reason I went live is I want to tell you about the method. This is a general information. What does the word neurographica means? Okay. So I'm going to transfer my camera. Now you see me, now you don't. Do a little magic, but very soon there we are. Voila. Let's start from the foundations. Okay, the foundation is about what is neurographica. The word neurographica consists of two words, actually. Okay, I'm actually going to break it here. We usually write the word neurographica together, but in this case, I broke it into two parts just to give you an understanding, just to give you the meaning, the way to understand what does the method involve, what does it work with, what are we dealing here with, okay? Let's deal with the word neuro. Neuro is the word, as you can all understand, neuro refers to the what? To the brain functioning, right? To the brain functioning, to the neural pathways, right? The neural pathways are the way our brain sends signals to our body parts to do whatever it is that we need to do. If, for example, I want to write something, right? What am I doing? My head is sending a signal to down my hand, right? Down my shoulder, down my hand, to my fingers. And my finger is the one who directs the marker and makes the markings on the paper. Okay, so that's one of the way to understand. The word neuro also refers to the inner processes. We all know about the neural pathways. We know about the brain functions, right? We have, with the medicine nowadays, we have a way to look inside, right? All the MRIs, the CAT scans, and all that stuff. But the truth is, no matter what, it is still an inner process. It is still, in a way, a hidden process, okay? Hidden process. And it refers, this kind of an allegory to the fact that we all have processes within us, which we kind of learn about, which we kind of think about, which we kind of even be intuitive about, but we don't fully have, an open access to it. Like I said, even with the whole medicine advancement, right? The open brain surgeries and everything, this is still a hidden process. The word neuro refers to the fact that there are processes within us that we try to understand, we try to maybe even change and transform, but they're not fully open to us, partially or more or less, they're still close to us. And we are trying to navigate through them. And this is what it's all about, navigating, right? Navigating through, thinking now, I should take a marker. Navigating through, yes, maybe this is better. Yeah, no. Navigating through information, navigating through processes, right? We can also say navigating through inner transformations, right? And the word transformation is an important word because that's exactly the premise that we make with Neurographica. The author of Neurographica, the creator of Neurographica, his name is Pavel Piskaryov, okay? Pavel Piskaryov, PhD. Pavel is a coach. Pavel is a psychologist. He's an architect. He is a Reiki master. He basically, as you can see, he is a jack of all trades. He knows a lot of stuff. He knows, he understands. And based on the bringing all of those practices, all of that knowledge together is how he created the method of Neurographica. And it's interesting to start seeing that when we say about neuro, and it's like I said, I was telling the story before, a few years ago, I was at a training, had nothing to do, back when I was still an educator. I'm a special educator, an early childhood educator, and a bilingual educator. So about, it wasn't a few, I'm going to tell you now, it was like in 2016, maybe, right before I met Neurographica. I was at a training for educators, okay, educators educating other teachers and schools and all that stuff. And the person who was presenting, right, the person who was leading the seminar, she said something interesting. She said that she goes to YouTube and she watches, actually, no, this happened in 2017, I believe, or 18, because I started doing Neurographica. And I remember that struck me because she started talking about the fact that she's obsessed with everything neuro. She says she goes to the YouTube and she watches all the TED Talks about neuropsychology, neuro, anything with neuro, she says, any neuropsychology, neuroeducation, everything that had to do with the way the brain works in bringing information to us, in transforming information, in kind of taking an information and changing it around. So that's very interesting, right? And I was like struck. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And I remember telling her about Neurographica, and she was like, oh, she was like somewhat intrigued. She's like, really? And I said, yeah, and that has to do with the neuropsychology, with the way the brain works. And back then, of course, nobody knew anything about Neurographica. I was the first one to make that. I still have that video going on YouTube about the Neurographica, what the method is, how it works, and everything, right? And it was something new. And that's the idea. The idea was that people are interested. People who have nothing to do with neuro, with psychology, with neurology, with biology, with medicine, are interested in the way the brain works, in the way the brain functions, the way the brain brings us through various processes that take the information from the outside, the information where we are in now, and kind of transform it, kind of work through it in order to bring awareness to our life, to bring transformation, to change. People want to know, how does it work that something happens to me? And what happens on the brain level? What is happening inner there, right? And that's an interesting part because the field of psychology, right? What those of you in the specialist course, right? Many of you are in the coaching with Neurographica course, where I talk about the foundations, the idea of, oh yeah, right. I'm talking about the foundations of psychology, the field of psychology, and how it is involved in the Neurographica method. And then we remember there, I talk a lot about the fact that the psychology as a field has evolved for many, many years, right? Ever since the beginning of the Greek philosophy. But it was really, the major changes occurred when Freud came and he started talking about what? Neuro. He started talking about the fact that our brain, there's more to our brain than we see. There's more to our brain than what the medicine kind of discover, different parts of the brain, right? Which is also interesting. But he started talking that there are parts, and he started talking about things that people had a hard time believing, right? And we all know that Freud was actually a doctor. There was no the field of psychology back then. He was the one who started working. He's the one to kind of bring about and create the field of psychology. And he was a doctor, and he started talking about the fact that we have different functions, we have different processes within the brain, right? We all know about his ego and the id, right? And the understanding that there are parts of us that work on the inner level, that work on the level that start telling us, do this or don't do this, right? And that gave a new understanding to the way people started understanding how life works, started kind of treating life, right? Kind of understanding that life can be changed. If before that, people were born in certain areas, right? And they would stay like that, right? If person was born poor, they would stay poor. If they're rich, they're rich. There was no traveling between social classes. There was no understanding. There was no growth, basically. And we're talking about from group dynamics, right? We're not talking about, of course, there were certain individual stories, right? And we know all about it through literature, right? And maybe some historic, but in generally, people were always born in a certain social level, and they stayed like that because there was no growth, there was no understanding that that can be changed, that change from the to the outside can happen from the inside. And this is the premises of the word neuro in the word Neurographica, that we start the change within us, inside. Okay, it's on the inside, and that's what it's about. Okay, but then comes the second part, right? You're going to say, oh, Lana, great, what about the word graphica? If you remember, I mentioned Pavel Piskaryov, he's psychologist coach, so that has to do with the neuro part, the study of the brain processes, the study of the conscious, the subconscious, right? Everything that Carl Gustav Jung, the disciple of Freud, later brought in and developed the field of psychology further. Carl Gustav Jung is very important in our study. Why? Because it is based on his work that Pavel, the author, has created. Pavel is a Jungian psychologist, right? And there's a lot of Jungian ideas, philosophy, even the pyramid of consciousness. The pyramid of consciousness is one of the ways to understand how our consciousness works. I will be making an open session on the pyramid either Friday or on Monday, probably Monday, okay? Well, I will explain how the pyramid of consciousness is integrated within the 8 steps of the algorithm. Okay, it's a very unique way of understanding it. And this is the idea. The idea is that everything neuro. Then came Pavel, and what he did was very unique because he took the inner processes of the psychology, the coaching foundation that's involved in here, that's installed in here. And then he took his knowledge, his expertise in architecture. Pavel is also an artist, so he took art. He took architectural knowledge, Neurographica, not in the basics level, but those of you who took the neuro composition course, you know what I'm talking about. It has a lot of structural understanding. There's a lot of structural knowledge, importance within the Neurographica method, okay? It's very important for us to figure out why are we putting the shape here, why does the shape go on the right side, on the left side, is it in the center, is it in the middle, or is it on the side, okay? And that usually reveals to the person what is the intention toward the goal, okay? And the Graphica part refers to the fact that Pavel Piskaryov is an architect, and there are architectural kind of like architectural foundations here, okay? The foundations of architectural have to do with what? With the line, with drawing a line, with what the line represents, with what shapes represent, okay? The idea of the shapes. Again, watch the video I made yesterday. I made an open video yesterday. It's on my YouTube channel. I will put it in the Google Doc for you guys to have access to it. But that's what I talked about. I talked about the significance of shapes. Why do we use, right? I talked about the fact that we have a Neurographica language, and every language has an alphabet. The alphabet of the Neurographica language are shapes and lines, okay? If you ever took, some of you I know took different advanced courses with me, there is a course called Neurosketching. In the Neurosketching course, we actually learn the significance of various ways to draw the neural line. There are 5 ways you can draw the neural line that will resemble the brain waves. Okay, it's very deep information, very deep, advanced, very interesting course. And that's what we discuss, and that's what we talk about. And there is an understanding that shapes relate not just on a psychological level they talk to our subconscious in a certain level, but there are also architectural foundation. There are certain rules about building something, right? What is an architect? Certain way to figure out the blueprint of building a building that it would stand for a long time. It will be safe for people to live in there, right? It will be aesthetically beautiful, aesthetically harmonious, right? People should like what they see, right? If people want something unusual, they go to the architect and he designs or she designs a house for them. Something unique, something unusual. And that's what it's about, okay? Neurographica is very unique. It designs, right? It's about design. It's about designing something that your brain will understand as a blueprint for what you want to achieve in life. We always start the Neurographica session with the goal, okay? And the goal here, the word goal can go in both parts, okay? It can go here, it can go here, because the word goal is how we start any process in life, right? We always set a goal. Before we go anywhere, we put a GPS address in our car, in our phone, and that's how we start driving. We don't just start driving and saying, okay, I'm going to start driving and then I'll figure out where I'm going. No, we put a goal, we figure out the address, we figure out where we are going, how we are getting there, and then we start the car and we start driving. Okay, and that's the idea. We always set the goal because based on the goal is what we are going to draw, what we are going to plan, right? We know architecture, graphics is about planning, right? How do you plan? How do you plan around, right? When people plan doing additions to their house or even building a house from scratch or additions, right? The first thing they have to do is to hire an architect before any permissions have been granted, before they even get sometimes they get a constructor before, but the architect is always step one. Why? Because the architect has to plan out. The architect has to think few ways, okay? The way architecture works is functioning. What is the function? Each room has to have a function. Constructions. How will I locate the room? How will I locate each, let's call it shape, right? Each object on the paper so that it would benefit the owner. There's a few ways, functions, constructions, and then there is something that we call usefulness. What is the benefit? How will this benefit me? How will this specific arrangements of rooms or arrangements of understanding how everything works, how will it benefit me? How will it help me get to my goal? Because it's always my goal. My goal is, let's say, whatever you tell your architect, I want this kind of house, I want this, so many balconies, I want this kind of outside area, right? Front yard, backyard, whatever, pool, no pool, whatever you guys decide, garden, no garden, whatever, pond, right? What people do, fountains in the pond, maybe not. And you let the architect know exactly what you want. How many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, how many living rooms, right? People have many living rooms, not just one. Some people have two, right? That happens. But that's what it is. And you have to figure out, and you know, it's up to the architect to figure out, okay, if I'm putting one room over here, then I'm putting another. What is the plan? What is the function? Why am I doing this? So it's what? It's strategy, right? There's a word strategy, strategic planning, they call it. There's a strategic planning. Why am I doing it? What is this for? What would be my benefit from it? And you also ask another question, right? We call them the coaching questions. You ask, should I be putting it somewhere else? Can I put it somewhere else? Would it be better to put it in another area? We all go through this when we draw Neurographica. We all go through inner processes, understanding, what is it that we want? How do we draw, right? If you go through the 8 steps of the algorithm, it always goes either the neuro, the hidden process, right? Let's say step 1 when we set the goal. Even though it's we name it, we set the goal, but remember we do the brainstorming exercise, and that's an inner process. That's trying to figure out, that's trying to kind of give it directions to our neurons, right? Give a direction within our mind, give us a way to focus on what do we want in this case. What are we looking for today? How are we transforming our lives today? What would I like to achieve now? Okay. And then we start kind of strategically planning what's going on with me. In the beginning, in the basics course, there's not that much strategic planning. In the basics course, we focus on removing inner blocks. We call it removing limitations, right? We all know that, and this is an interesting part, and this is where the course has gotten new addition, okay? The basics course usually consists of ARL, the algorithm for removing limitations, right? And we do this 3 times. We learned the classic version, right? We have 3 versions, okay? We learned the classic version. Then we learned the lines version, which is more, can be considered also as express, right? I teach you how to do this quickly, how within a 20 to 30 minutes, you can quickly transform any situation, any stress, any anxiety you may have. Then we have something we call shapes. Okay, shape can also be as an express or as a classic. And this is an interesting part. We have, there will be two changes, okay? First change will be, we'll be using, we'll be making an express, and we'll be making a different type of press. Again, I usually teach this, and I'm going to show it again, how you can vary the 8 steps of the algorithm, which steps can be varied, which steps can be made, have to be made in sequence, and which steps can be made not in sequence. Instead of step 4, for example, you can go to step 5 and then come back to step 4, all that understanding. But over here, I'm going to give you an express, and we're going to call it the monochrome. Okay, Pavel started teaching and explaining that monochrome is about 2 colors. Even though it's called monochrome, it's really about 2 colors. Okay, so it's about choosing and staying with a color, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And the major change is that there's an addition of a new algorithm. The algorithm is called AROL. The algorithm, it's also an algorithm for removing limitations. It will also involve the catharsis, right? The catharsis draw. But this time we will focus on removing outer limitations, okay? And we will discuss what does this mean, okay? In which cases can we use the removing outer limitations algorithm? How does it work? What's involved, okay? And this is the idea. Removing outer limitations and the monochrome drawing are the new additions, okay? And as we mentioned, the Neurographica method brings you that understanding. It first works, it works on 2 levels. Again, going back, outer level, you see what you're drawing, your vision is involved, your tactile senses are involved, right? Your hearing is involved. So basically your 5 senses are involved more or less, right? The tasting is not involved unless you're drinking tea or something else, right? The smelling is not involved unless, and I have an actual open session that I did where I talked about the use of essential oils. I used to do that a lot when I used to lead open, not open, what do you call, live classes before the pandemic, before I went online fully. I would use essential oils to bring another sense, to bring this sense of smell to the use of the Neurographica method, and it worked amazingly, just really, truly powerful. This is the basic understanding again. And again, whatever happens in the open visual, we all know that it has another part, the part that we don't see, but we know that's involved. We know that's being transformed. Okay, that's a neuro part, the inner part, the inner processes within us that bring us to transformations. Okay. Are there any questions about this understanding of what the word Neurographic means, how it works, and everything else? Okay. I am going to say thank you to my Facebook audience for joining me. And I'm inviting you to join this closed session as we are going to do the actual practice and start the drawing. Those of you who would like to join the course, welcome to PM me, and I will be glad to add you. Okay. Okay, I think I'm going to have to stop the Zoom and then enter again, guys, because from my knowledge, even if I put stop the live stream, it often doesn't stop. It goes on. Okay, can you please re-enter the Zoom?